Today, we're going to talk a little bit about vaccines, okay? Vaccines in general and autoimmunity. What I'm holding up right here is a textbook on the relationship between vaccines and it triggering autoimmune diseases. You just won't find this in Google or YouTube when you do searches at all because it's been totally suppressed. But the first thing I want to mention about this book is that it's all based on researchers in Israel, Brazil, Canada, France, Italy. These are professors from universities that are talking about this topic. And I think this was written in 2015. Of course, you can't even find this book right now. But what's interesting about this is I don't find any universities from the US. Interesting, okay? Just in other places in the world. So what does this talk about? I mean, this will blow your mind. I wanted to do videos on this so bad, but I couldn't. I'm going to go right to page 1 and give you a couple quotes in here. This book summarizes individual vaccines in which common autoimmune diseases they may trigger in susceptible individuals, okay? Now, I want to teach you a new word if you haven't ever heard about this before, but the word is adjuvants. What's an adjuvant? It's something they put in vaccines to increase the immune response. They use a nice way of saying it. It enhances your immunity, but really it enhances the reaction, the triggering of vaccine. And the question is, why do they put these adjuvants in these vaccines? And I want to share the reason for that right here. The problem with adding a pure antigen, okay, which is like the thing in a vaccine, like a virus or something like that, in modern day vaccines is that they're generally far less immunogenic than the older style live or killed whole organism vaccines. Okay, this has created a major need for improved and more powerful adjuvants. So, in other words, in the past, they would just give you the whole virus, and it's dead, but they would give you the whole thing. Now they don't do that, probably because of cost and complexity. So now they have to add other things to try to stimulate the immune process, okay, when they inject you. So now I want to read through some of this. This will blow you away. It has been shown that the vaccine for Lyme disease is capable of triggering arthritis in genetically susceptible hamsters, and that when the adjuvant aluminum hydroxide is added to the vaccine, 100% of the hamsters develop arthritis. Here's another one. Compelling evidence, clinical animal research emerged to show that Guillain-Barré syndrome and other demyelinating autoimmune neuropathies like MS, for example, could occur up to 10 months following vaccinations. So it's not always, right after. It could be delayed. Fascinating. This is why it's really hard to prove this, but they have all this data. This is like just filled with research. Okay, here's another point right here I want to mention. These manifestations pointed to the subclinical, slowly evolving disease. Whether this disease would eventually progress into its full-blown clinical apparent form depended on whether the individual was further exposed to an immune stimuli, including subsequent vaccinations. Okay, so how many people get routine, or kids or infants start getting these subsequent vaccines every year, right? A lot of people do. Incredible. And they go on to say, as a case in point, we recently described 6 cases of lupus following the HPV vaccination. As a casual glance at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, immunization schedule for infants showed that according to the U.S. prescribed guidelines, children receive up to 19 vaccinations during infancy, many of which are multivariant, which means their antigens, their combined antigens are from different strains, not just one pathogen. So they're combining all these things right here, right? Within the first 6 months of their life, 19 vaccinations. This is insane. When I was younger, we never had this many. You can imagine what this is going to create. I mean, incredible problems down the road. And just so you know, none of my kids have been vaccinated. All right, here's another one. What is obvious, nonetheless, is that a typical vaccine formulation contains all the necessary biochemical components to induce autoimmune manifestations, okay? Physicians need to be aware that in certain individuals, vaccinations can trigger serious, potentially disabling, and even fatal autoimmune manifestations. Finally, we wish to encourage efforts towards developing safer vaccines, which could be pursued by the vaccine manufacturing industry, which is not going to happen because they fast-track them. And unfortunately, doctor groups right now, they can't take it. They don't like it because they've been deplatformed. And unfortunately, it's sick. Here's another one, chapter 3. Mounting evidence demonstrates that the adjuvants and preservatives included in vaccines may not only enhance the antigenic stimulation, but also is capable of inducing autoantibodies, inflammation, and abnormal immune responses, triggering overt autoimmune manifestations such as arthritis, neuronal damage, myocarditis, and vasculitis. Incredible. Did I get the COVID vaccine? Absolutely not. Unfortunately, my mother got it, and she ended up in the hospital with huge clots in her arteries, okay? And her lungs were filled with these clots. So she almost died. And so, of course, when I found out about this, I was like, what did you do, right? She's just trying to travel somewhere and she had to get a vaccine. Now, I'm going to show you something else, which is one last point here. And I mean, it goes on and on and on and on, but I think this is going to be very important just to see what they use as adjuvants. All right, check this out. This is what they use. And I won't get into all the types of vaccines, but in this page, it shows all the different types of vaccines and the adjuvants that they use. Aluminum formaldehyde, monosodium glutamate. Oh, wow. The great majority of them use aluminum and formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a great embalming agent. So anyway, enough on this depressing news. I just wanted to communicate something that I can't communicate on YouTube. And now you know my viewpoint on vaccines. And yes, I am a vaccine denier, apparently.